If I was making the decision, I wouldn't draft Herbert in the first round.
I don't think Herbert's the guy here. Maybe they do take Herbert there. I wouldn't do it.
Justin Herbert has problems. He's inconsistent. He struggles with accuracy often. He regularly is late on throws. He doesn't anticipate things well at all.
Why I'm not a huge Herbert fan is I just feel like more often than not, when he has to make the tough throw, he doesn't. I just think his accuracy isn't great. Can throw it at the moon, but he'd miss it type of guy.
With the 6th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Justin Herbert, quarterback, Oregon.
If you paid attention at all during my draft coverage when I, previewed which players I liked and which players I didn't, you noticed that, well, quite frankly, I had some controversial opinions. And the reason for that wasn't just to, give hot takes or to get clicks. There was a legitimate reason behind it. In fact, I completely reworked the entire way that I evaluate the draft process. And it's not just because of one guy, but it's largely because of one guy, and that guy is Justin Herbert. After we pretty much all got him wrong, especially on YouTube and in the YouTube community, pretty much everyone who I respect thought that Herbert was going to suck, and myself included. The last clip you heard, well, not the last one, that was Roger Goodell, who I am not, but the one before that, who I am, that's what I said. I said that I didn't think he was going to be successful. I didn't have him as a first round pick, and yet clearly I should have had him as maybe first overall, at least top 2, because, Burrow was awesome as well. But I wanted to really make a video, a deep dive, and talk about what he does well. And part of me feels like you can't totally separate the narrative around him going into year one with the actual player. Like, it does kind of go together, the story of Justin Herbert. But at the same time, I do want to kind of talk about both the narrative and mostly talk about the player. Sometimes, some of the stuff that we all said was a criticism of him still does kind of rear its ugly head a little bit in the NFL, interestingly enough, but the upsides are very different. And, with quarterbacks, one of the main things I talk about now that I didn't talk about last year is quick release. And you'll see why with Herbert, because it's something that no one really pays attention to. But with Herbert's quick release, it really mattered in the NFL. So like right here, for example, this is a good example of what I'm talking about. So what's going to happen on this play is it's zone coverage. You see the route that Herbert wants to throw to, and it could sort of get into a gap in coverage at a certain point. Like watch right here. So Herbert's going to fake a handoff, and you see that, yeah, you could kind of make this throw. Now, safety has a good read on it, and he's going to kind of run in relatively quickly. So Herbert is going to have to get rid of this ball relatively quickly. So that's kind of where the interesting thing comes in here. And for Herbert, you look at him, he is not into throwing motion at all right here. But watch how quickly he goes from not into throwing motion to the ball being out of his hand. As you see, very quick. And, some people might sit here and say, well, it was only a split second. How much does it matter? But at the same time, if that's a split second later, well, now, the player he's trying to throw the ball to gets hit a split second earlier. Maybe he does not make the catch. So those little things do matter. And having a quicker release, it helps you make decisions easier because you can take a split second longer to make them and still get the ball there in the same amount of time. Like this one's going to be another good example. This one is against Jacksonville. It's going to be kind of a similar idea where, again, you see there's a route that will get into a gap in coverage, and watch what's going to happen. So Herbert takes the snap. You do see that at this point, so there is a Jacksonville player who's read this play kind of well. The guy in the black circle, he's going to try to run over and clog up this route that could otherwise get open. Herbert is, again, not in the throwing motion. So he has to get this ball there as soon as possible. But again, quick release, quick throw, and that ends up being a big gain when it could have easily been an incompletion, if not an interception, if it just took Herbert longer to throw the football. Forget, the throw itself or the decision to throw it. Just the act of actually throwing the football, if it took a little bit longer, that could have been trouble. So just one small thing right there can actually pay off in a big way in the NFL. But let's be honest, who cares about that stuff, right? That's not what we're watching Justin Herbert for. We're not going there and saying, what's great about Herbert? His quick release. I mean, it matters, but what's the most important thing about Herbert? His incredible throws. He would just make these highlight reel throws that would make us all lose our minds. And what's so funny and so interesting about it is when I went back and I, was finding stuff for that intro, talking about, finding guys who are saying stuff about Herbert in a negative light before the draft, which I should also mention, everyone I used in that clip, I'm pretty much a fan of. It was Joel Klatt, and then a couple YouTubers, Brett Coleman and Zach from Strong Opinion Sports. Like, I respect those guys, and it wasn't a slight towards them. It was just good sound bites I was finding, which is why I used my own also to show like it is a mistake, but it happens also. So, but anyways, back to the point. What's interesting about it is that all three of those guys and myself all agreed he would make some unbelievable throws, some incredible highlight reel level plays. We just didn't think he could do it consistently enough. And well, he did it pretty consistently. So, like right here, for example, this is a great. This is probably the first time actually he made one of those throws that just wowed you. And I think at this point, everyone who bashed him before the draft immediately realized that they had screwed up. So it's cover two. There's a receiver who's going to try and get in sort of that eye of the storm area over the middle of the field, and just watch how little separation there's going to be and watch how little that matters. This play is going to start, and it's a good disguise. Kansas City gets back pretty well, but I mean, just look at that perfectly pinpoint accurate throw down the field. That's just a difficult throw to make if you're Justin Herbert, and he was under pressure as well. So the fact that he can do something like that already is impressive. But what was amazing isn't the fact that he just made one or two of those. It was how many of those types of plays he made. Like, this one's another one. This was in the Tampa Bay game. Me being a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, I felt very stupid after I bashed Herbert prior to the draft, and then he comes and torches my team. That's exactly what he did, though. This is quarters coverage. You see the route he wants to throw to. And watch what happens. Herbert is going to take the snap here. He does run a play action. And watch how he throws it from about his own 36-yard line. And it's going to get caught at around 5. And when you factor, the distance over, that was over a 60-yard throw, pinpoint accurate down the field. His cannon of an arm, we all kind of brought up as an afterthought. Well, we clearly shouldn't have, because it paid off in a huge way over and over again in the NFL season. And then something like this, it's a cover 0, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a second of his ability to scramble. But this is going to be less about scrambling and more about throwing off balance. So Herbert takes the snap, and as you see, it's picked up pretty nicely to blitz. He throws off his back foot, though, and makes a perfectly accurate throw that ends up being a touchdown. I mean, I don't know how many guys make that throw. So that's kind of the thing, is we can sit here and say, he had some fundamental issues. When you can do that, I don't care about these fundamental issues. We probably should have paid more attention to it and should have said, that's something that'll work in the NFL, because he did it in college as well. But in the NFL, he really thrived at it when they kind of opened the playbook up for him. One thing that kind of flew under the radar, I thought, with Herbert is he made some very good reads. And it's one of those things where it's almost hard to really decide how much, how do you know if a quarterback's going to be good at this unless you see them play quarterback? Because it's one thing to, quiz a guy and say, what coverage is this? And they'll say cover 2. And then you say, and then what should you do? And he says, I'll do this or do that, whatever. There's plenty of times you can do that. And on a chalkboard, you can sort of get an idea of how smart a guy is. But there's a difference between doing that in an air-conditioned room versus doing it in the heat of the moment. You have to make a decision right now. And Herbert made pretty good decisions consistently. There was a couple of debatable rookie mistakes, but for the most part, he made some pretty good decisions. Like right here, for example, where what's going to happen on this play is it's going to end up being zone coverage. It's a cover 3 zone, and there's 2 routes I want you to take a look at. So the way that this play could work, and the way that I would assume you expect this play to work, is there's a receiver running a deeper route, and that could kind of push the Carolina players in that area further deep. You then hit the number 1 receiver who isn't running as far deep, and you can pick up some yards this way. It's a simple concept and something you'll see fairly often. However, right when this play begins, what you're going to notice is that multiple Carolina players move in, which now means that throw that you probably pre-snap would have assumed is open is not. So this is a classic rookie quarterback makes an interception on this play, and it's kind of a learning curve of, defensive players can sometimes do different things, and that's just a young player mistake that happens all the time. And again, I'm not saying it didn't happen with Herbert, but it happened a lot less. Watch him make the read, and he's going to make the throw further down the field and pick up more yards than he would have, even if he completed the more risky throw that he probably was initially planning on throwing to pre-snap. So little stuff like that, it's very quick, and that's good. You want someone who can make those decisions quickly. If you talk about some of the best to ever play, like a Tom Brady, he makes decisions quickly. So the quicker you can make those decisions, the better off they're going to be. Here's another example. It's zone coverage, and you see multiple receivers are running kind of similar routes. So for Herbert, there's no real way to know pre-snap which one will probably get more open. So realistically, what you should do, since they're both kind of maybe going to get into a gap in coverage, you should probably just, pick which matchup you like the best and hope that one gets open first. That should be your first read. Now, it's also possible that the offense has a designed first read on this play, but again, I'm not in the huddle. I don't know if that's the case on this play or not. But regardless, watch what happens. Herbert takes a snap. He's going to take the read to his right, and that is not open. You see a Carolina player has kind of moved in a little bit. The one in the black box, he's moved closer to cover up that route. So Herbert, seeing that, now knows that if he's closer, that defensive player is closer to the offense's right, well, then over to the left of that player, it'll be a little bit more open. So instead, he realizes it, makes the throw over, and they get the first down that way. So again, little stuff like that, but it's not just going through your progressions. It's quickly doing it. It's quickly saying, oh, this is that, and I know that this means this, so I will do that kind of stuff. And one more little thing that I couldn't help but notice, and again, you'll see a lot of these. I'm not picking these out in isolation. This isn't a crazy play by any means, but this is going to be a cover one blitz, and you see the route to the tight end that Herbert is going to want to throw to here. And right when this play starts, you see why it's open. So one thing worth noting is that Herbert is going to be under immediate pressure. There's just free man going over to block him, so he's going to have to get rid of this ball pretty quickly. So that's just part one. But part two is that typically where you'd want to throw this ball is kind of over the middle of the field. However, with the way that the corner is aligned, he's closer to the inside than Hunter Henry, the tight end. I think a lot of guys who maybe have low football IQ would throw this over the middle of the field, but that's dangerous. It could get incomplete, it could get batted up and potentially intercepted. You don't want to do that if you can avoid it. And again, it's no harm if Justin Herbert makes the wrong read on this, and not even wrong read, but it's no harm if he does throw it over the middle like you would kind of expect him to do. But Justin Herbert, I think just football kind of comes naturally to him. He just has naturally high football IQ. Watch him throw it sort of to that back shoulder where it was able to be complete. Again, very little thing, not something you're going to notice typically, right? Because you just say, okay, kind of threw it a little bit behind right there, but that was intentionally behind and just a good read and a good throw from Herbert. And he makes a lot of those. Basically, every game you watch, you'll find him doing that at least a couple of times. I have something that's a bit of a weird concern to have about Justin Herbert is that he was great under pressure last year. And if this is the first you're hearing about under pressure statistics, you're going to look at me like I'm absolutely out of my mind for bringing this up in a concern context. If you're great under pressure, you're probably, going to be great, just period, right? Isn't that a good thing for someone to be great under pressure? And yes and no. I will say yes and no. And here's how I have to explain it. So I made a whole video talking about this, but typically quarterbacks throughout NFL history, but especially like these past 20 years, that's where I gathered the data from. How they are under pressure is typically from like the 55 to 78 range in terms of passer rating. How you perform under pressure, passer rating tends to be between mid 50s and mid 70s, somewhere around there. Justin Herbert had a passer rating of over 100, which that typically just doesn't translate year in and year out. Like every now and then it happens. Ben Roethlisberger randomly had a passer rating over 100 one year. Aaron Rodgers had a passer rating over 100 one year. But even Rodgers, who's obviously great under pressure, that one year was an outlier, and he typically was in the 70s for the rest of his career, with the exception of that one year. So for Herbert, he did so well under pressure, you would assume that it could come down. The only exception is if he's just by far the best player under pressure we have ever seen. And honestly, he might be. That's honestly a real possibility, because when I watch the tape, I don't see luck. I see a little bit here and there, but I don't see that much luck, which maybe it's just I'm not sure what I'm looking for, and there's a different kind of luck. So I'm not going to just completely throw out the numbers, because the numbers are the numbers. You can't deny, math, right? But at the same time, you can't deny tape either. And while maybe it'll go down a little bit and it will regress to the mean a little bit, it doesn't mean that you can't control it at all. And there certainly are guys who are better or worse under pressure. And Herbert is one of those guys who is insanely good under pressure. And I don't think it's out of the question that he could be a statistical anomaly. I mean, we've seen that before. Aaron Rodgers was a statistical anomaly when it came to guys who could, get high volume stats without turning the ball over. Everyone said, well, he'll never be able to keep that up. He kept it up. Maybe Herbert could do the same. So, like right here, for example, this is exactly what I'm talking about that he's so good at. It's not just getting around pressure. That's a part of it, but that's not the only thing. So I've circled one Tampa Bay player. He is blitzing. The blitz isn't going to get picked up, which, that's something the Chargers are certainly going to have to clean up a little bit, is their blocking in general. And it's not just offensive linemen, but like on this play, a wide receiver is supposed to be blocking and it's not going to work. Like watch, as you see. So there is going to be pressure. Justin Herbert takes the snap. And, so there's immediate pressure right here. And at this point, what would you expect? You would expect this to be a sack. Maybe you think that he could throw the ball away. However, Herbert is really good at this stuff. Watch this sidestep immediately followed up with a throw down the field where he couldn't even really get his legs into it, but was still incredibly accurate. It's stuff like that. And the reality is, this is one of the best seasons a quarterback has had under pressure in NFL history. Statistically, it is. It's that crazy. So, part of that is maybe an outlier, but definitely a part of it is just how good he is at this stuff. There's also this one. It's a cover zero play. And what's going to be so fascinating about this one is just how crazy it works. Because, again, cover zero, the way it typically works is you have one extra rusher than the offense does blockers. So that typically means someone is going to get completely free, which means usually you have to get rid of the ball quickly. But watch Herbert just take the snap, immediately just take off sideways, break a tackle, and throw the ball down the field for a touchdown. I mean, that should not be possible. It just should not be possible. And it's incredible. So again, if you're confused about how the outlier stuff works, which I kind of am a little bit as well, my assumption would be that part of it is you expect to not be able to break the tackle consistently. A lot of it is the wide receiver just getting open on that play, whereas if he didn't, maybe it could be an interception and it would go against Herbert. All of that stuff, sure. But again, like I said, just because there's a bit of an outlier, okay, great. So now he'll only have an 80 passer rating when under pressure instead of an 100 passer rating under pressure. That's still going to be the best in the league, so I'm not that concerned about it. And I want to bring up this play as well. This is something I could see the Chargers actually doing a little bit more, similar to how Kansas City does this a little bit with Patrick Mahomes. It's just making this a part of your game. So the first step of this play is the play action, which is going to try and get the edge rusher to move closer towards the middle of the field. Then Herbert sort of sidesteps over and is going to fake as though he's running, which can get another Tampa Bay player to kind of move in. Finally, you have another Charger player run out and block the last Tampa Bay defender in that area. Herbert can flip it over as a screen pass, but with the extra addition of the threat of Herbert to run, this can now allow for more stuff to happen. And watch how that's exactly what's going to happen. There's the play action, he runs in, then he tosses it over, and the block wasn't made, so the play didn't work as well as you would have hoped. But still, I mean, that was a pretty good play by the Chargers right there, and it went for a decent amount of yards, and it would have gone for a lot less had Herbert just thrown the ball over instead of Herbert, faking as though he's running himself, which is something I could see the Chargers doing a little bit more. And you're taking advantage of his mobility, which is a very real thing. If I have to come up with some criticisms of Herbert, I can come up with a couple. It is a little bit difficult, but it's not impossible. There are some very real criticisms. Let's go with some lighter ones, and then we'll get to, I would say there's one I guess, major criticism, I would say. And even it isn't like the biggest criticism ever, but it is a criticism. So first, it's man coverage, cover one play. You see the receiver running a go route towards the sideline. This is a lot of what Herbert did well, was simply just giving his receivers a chance. And he has good receivers, especially good jump ball receivers, and he took advantage of that. Like, watch, as you see, Herbert takes a snap. He is kind of just going to throw one up there. It's not an incredible throw or anything, but it is a touchdown. And, on one hand, you could sit here and say, well, Herbert didn't have to do too much. A lot of quarterbacks could do that, but not every quarterback does. And part of being a quarterback sometimes is just having the confidence in your teammates that they'll make the good play. and Herbert did that. So you could frame it as a negative, you could frame it as a positive. Like this one's another one where this was a huge situation at the time. So they're currently tied with the Saints 27-27. It's a 3rd down and 1. There's only 15 seconds left in the fourth quarter. So if they can get the ball in field goal range, it would be pretty great. And again, similar play type where it's a go route towards the sideline with a single safety deep, which why you only have one safety deep in this spot, I don't know, but that's what the Saints are doing, and the Chargers are going to take advantage. Watch, right when this play starts, you're going to see it's going to be Mike Williams, who has a step right here. And on one hand, you could argue that because of this step, if it's a perfect throw, it should be a completion. But one of the issues is that another New Orleans player who is just playing coverage over the middle of the field has read this one well and is staying deep. But watch how, I mean, this is going to be it's a good throw. It's a great catch, though. So again, that's kind of if you want to make an argument against Herbert. If you are a Herbert hater, you would say, how many times did he get bailed out by his receivers? The reality is some. I mean, more than I feel like a lot of other quarterbacks had get bailed out by their receivers. But at the same time, an element of that is him saying, I have good receivers. I'm going to put them in a position to make a great catch. So how much credit do you give him? How much blame do you give him? I think you don't give him any blame. You could argue his stats are inflated a little, but I really wouldn't. I think it's not that big of a deal. Because, like, one more thing, something like this is he's just good at it. Like, that's another part of it is, yes, a lot of these things came up because he has good receivers who we could kind of throw up and they would make a great play. But part of it is he legitimately has a great deep ball. I mean, look at this. So, again, it's going to be a good offensive play by the receiver, but it's a pinpoint accurate throw down the field that results in a touchdown. Whereas if it was just a decent throw, well, then that's not a touchdown. So, again, I wanted to bring it up because I could kind of maybe frame it as it's a big part of his game. So it was necessary to bring up regardless. But in terms of a positive or a negative, I would say it's a positive, although I would say maybe there's a small amount of inflating numbers there, but nothing too major, I don't think. So let's stay on this train of, we'll call it this whole segment nitpicking Justin Herbert. Let's go with that because that's kind of what we're doing, right? We're trying to see if there's some things that we can nitpick on, right? There's the under pressure stuff, there's the deep ball, jump ball stuff. There's one more thing, like if you want to look at sort of his interceptions or his quote unquote dumb decisions, like there's a little there, I guess. So right here, for example, this is what I'm talking about. It's going to be against Carolina. It's a zone coverage play. He has a receiver who's going to try and get into a gap in coverage. Watch what happens. Right when this play starts, you're going to see that where he wants to throw to, there's a Carolina defender who's doing a good job of making a read on this play and is going to kind of try and step in front of the route. He's going to try and jump the route. And as I pause it right here, Herbert is in the middle of the throwing motion, and you can see that he's reading the play and he's going to try and jump in front of it. And that's what he does. He jumps in front of it and gets the interception. You could sit here and say, he stared down the receiver. He should have read that, all of that. And to me, I kind of think it was just a good defensive play that happens to every quarterback. That's just my feeling on it. And also something like this. So what's going to end up happening on this play is it's going to be zone coverage again. And you see the route that he wants to throw to. Watch what happens. So Herbert takes the snap. And as you see right now, I've paused it again right when he starts the throwing motion. You can look here and you can say, maybe this isn't the throw to make. I mean, it would take a really accurate throw and it'd have to get there in such a hurry. The reality is the safety has time to run over and at least knock this ball away, potentially get an interception. It's not really the smartest throw, I would say, to throw at this time. I think that maybe there's better things you could do. Now, in fairness, it's a 3rd down and 12, so I think he's kind of having the mindset of, well, if I don't make this throw, we're not getting the first down anyways, and we have to punt. This isn't that much worse than a punt. But still, I think it's fair to say, probably one he should have kept in his pocket. Again, he is going to take this chance. Does get intercepted. If this is the worst thing you're doing, though, as an NFL quarterback who's a rookie, you're having a pretty smart rookie season, I would say. So to recap where we're at so far, great quick release. He'll make some insane throws, really smart player, and his play under pressure is the best we've ever seen out of a rookie for sure. And sometimes rookies actually struggle at that and then get better, which I can't imagine happening with Herbert with how high he started, but still that is something that does happen. So those are all the good, which is almost everything. There's one thing that I really have a slight criticism with. Other than like maybe there's a jump ball thing, maybe he makes a couple of bad decisions throughout the course of an NFL season. There's one thing that is a real thing, and quite frankly, it was talked about a lot, going into the draft, and it's a real thing. He's not the most accurate quarterback. He just isn't. He will miss some throws. He's not horribly inaccurate. He's not missing wide open guys consistently or anything like that. He'll miss a throw. He will. That's okay. So will Patrick Mahomes, actually. I think both of those guys have a little bit of accuracy issues at times, but that is the thing with Herbert. So, like right here, I talked about his deep ball accuracy, and he definitely will make some great deep balls, but again, he'll miss some of every throw. And this is an example of him missing a deep ball. So, again, similar to what I've talked about, one safety deep, so you're going with a deep route. That makes sense. And so, right when this play starts, Herbert fakes a handoff. He is going to make this throw deep down the field. There's a wide open receiver, and he overthrows him. Not horrible, not the end of the world, but it was an overthrow. There's also something like this. So what's going to happen here is it's zone coverage, and you see how, all the Chargers are running to the offense's right, except for the halfback who then runs over to the offense's left. That's how this whole play works. Everyone goes to the right. You have a player over there. He could get open. And as you see, this is going to end up working out so perfectly. Herbert, though, off balance, throwing away from the ball, throws it a bit off. It's hard to blame him too much. That was a tough throw. I'm not going to kill him for it. But again, it was a bit off. And we've seen him make those types of throws too. So I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that there is a bit of inconsistency with his accuracy at times. But again, that one wasn't even really that bad of a throw, and it was off balance. So that one's kind of, if you want to call that one a nitpick, fine, but it's not in isolation. You have one like this where it's zone coverage, and the player he's going to want to throw to is just sort of underneath everything. Herbert's going to take this snap, and he initially looks somewhere else, eventually goes underneath and completely whiffs on this throw. I think you could argue that he was maybe looking down the field a little bit more, wanting something to get open, and kind of too quickly made the throw without really looking to see where he should be throwing to. So maybe that's it, but still, a missed throw is a missed throw. Whatever the reasoning is for it, it's a missed throw. I'll show one more. This play, cover one. You see the route he wants to throw to. Watch what happens. So Herbert takes a snap, and you're going to notice that this is a little bit open. And part of this is going to be another one of those welcome to the NFL things where the New England defensive back, who I've circled in yellow, he's going to actually make a great read. Despite playing man coverage deep, is going to read this and still kind of come in, which that's not really, you can't fault Herbert too much for that. It's a great play. But what I can fault him for is going to be that this throw itself is too far deep. I mean, look, it's a missed throw. It's not horrible because I do think that his mindset was a bit of, and in fact, I could even completely talk my way out of it if I wanted to. And I could say that the whole thing he was trying to do was put it in a spot where it would either fall incomplete or be caught if the receiver made an incredible throw. And it just so happened a defensive player made a great read on it. But I would still say it's better off to make an accurate throw than an inaccurate throw. It was a bit high, not a disaster, but it was a bit high and it turned into a disaster due to the great defensive play. So, a few things like that, a bit of inaccuracy issues, not like crazy more than you'll see any other quarterback make, but there were some. But honestly, that's my only real criticism I have of him is he'll occasionally be a bit inaccurate. There are more accurate players in the NFL than Herbert, but at the same time, so he might miss a 10-yard play, but then he'll make a 50-yard play on the next one. So that's way better than maybe like a Kirk Cousins who is and I don't want to say he's better right now than Kirk Cousins, but I think that, a couple of years he probably will be because even though Kirk Cousins might have a little bit more accuracy, what Herbert can do with the other stuff, the way he can make plays happen out of nothing is just so incredible and so remarkable. So one thing I'm certainly going to keep my eye out for, and I think you guys should too, is just how well does he play under pressure this year? And will there be a regression to the mean to some degree? Again, not all the way, just a little bit of the way. Will he regress in that regard? Possibly. I mean, possibly. Again, he was a top 15 quarterback in the NFL this year, which is insane when you factor on the fact that he was a rookie. Like, that just doesn't happen. So he was great. And I do feel like, every time with these kind of players, it's like you can't criticize them at all because everyone's so excited. It's like, yeah, there are a couple of concerns to have about Herbert for sure. But at the same time, the pros absolutely outweigh the cons, and it's awesome to watch. So he's a lot of fun. I figured I wanted to make a full breakdown talking about what he does well and poorly because, again, rookie, we don't know a lot about him at this point. So making a whole breakdown, where I really get in, a deep dive. I like these deep dive videos. I hope you guys like them as well. Thanks for watching the whole thing. If you're still here, I appreciate that. And yeah, again, let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on everything I said about Justin Herbert? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.